Tiffany, welcome to Growing Pains. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. So, first of all, we met just a few months ago for the first time in January out in Austin. And I remember my mind being slightly blown when you started talking about financial support for business owners and a lot of the things that you've been really embedded in over the last few years. So, for everybody listening today, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do, what your business is, and your family that you have at home?
My business is Energetic CFO, and I help female business owners take control of their finances because I am so tired of hearing, oh, my dad helps with this or my husband does this for me. And I want women to own their finances and at least have an equal part in the conversation with their spouse or someone else
Mm.
that's helping them with it. I started this business up about a year ago, and it's really my passion and what I love doing. And just being able to help women really understand their P&L from a business perspective and how that conveys to their personal finances and the whole financial picture for women, whether it's taxes. I'm not a CPA. I guess I'll go ahead and do my disclaimers. I have no licenses other than what is a mentor of mine says he has no license, but a marriage license and a driver's license. So anything here is for fun. I don't have any of that. So I'm not a financial advisor. I have just a strong finance background, went to school for finance and just love it. So that's what I do for work. We also have a real estate portfolio that my husband and I manage together. And I have two little boys. They are 4 and 2.5, and one coming in 10 short weeks, another boy.
Ooh,
So we're just going to have a wild house.
honestly, special boy mom shout out. Like, I feel like folks don't understand unless they are boy moms, especially, I don't know about your two, but mine are like wild animals, like 99.999% of the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keeping clothes on is a big struggle.
Oh, that's funny. Honestly, we went through a really interesting stint when we got a basketball net in our house, like one of those tiny little Fisher Price jobs. And for whatever reason, I think like one of my brothers plays basketball with his shirt off. And so they decided that the only way to play with this basketball net was that they had to remove their shirts.
That's
And it
great.
was just this like other personality. Like as soon as the shirts came off, they were just like different people. They were 10 years older and rough around the edges. And I was like, what am I dealing with here? Like, what is going on?
We do dance parties and they have to get naked. Even if I just got them dressed for school, if they're gonna dance, they have to be naked. I don't know what it is. We
Oh
just
my
roll with it.
gosh. Whatever runs through their brains is just very fascinating for sure. Well, listen, I love this ownership conversation. I think it's so important on multiple levels. I mean, we talk quite a bit about preparing for maternity leave here. So, financial understanding about what you can take, when you can take it, for how long, all those things. Really, really critical conversation for our clients at Master Maternity Leave. And just for like women generally, like running their company, being able to make confident decisions. I mean, you and I had a conversation earlier this week about some of our personal goals and really being able to balance the finances in the business with being able to invest heavily on some of our personal dreams. So, is there any place that you typically recommend that female business owners start when they're really trying to understand their financial picture?
I think it starts from like ground zero is having bank accounts dedicated to the business, because I've seen even businesses that are larger than you would expect still run through their personal account. So separate business account, whether it's in an EIN or just in your name, but designated just for business, that's key. And then using accounting software is another super basic thing. So there's free options out there. There's QuickBooks. There's so many options, but just picking one and sticking with it and getting something you know how to use. I personally am not a huge fan of QuickBooks because it's a little unwieldy and made for accountants and bookkeepers. And as a business owner, I want to know what I'm doing and touch it and feel it. So I look at other alternatives just depending on my business. So that's like fundamental systems that I would have in place. And then from there, knowing how to pull a P&L is the first step. And really looking at, are you making what you thought you were making? So
Mm.
that's looking at the revenue to start. Are you bringing in the income that you thought you were? And then looking at the expenses. And sometimes we spend things in our business, whether it's, coaching programs or software. Like there's so many things we do in our business that we think will add value. And I get stuck like with subscriptions that it's like, I'm not using this. Like, why am I still paying? Whether it's
Mhm.
$20 or $100 or $1,000, it's still money going out of your business that could be going to your family. So that's really where I
Mm.
started, just an expense analysis, because I'm getting winded. I'm so pregnant, like I can't talk too much or lose my breath. I get so excited looking at your expenses because it doesn't matter what you make, it's what you keep at the end of the day. And that's where tax strategy comes in as well, is making sure that you're not spending more than you need to in taxes, because that's a huge percentage of our income. I mean, it's 30%
Mhm.
usually in that ballpark for people. So it's having a strategy for taxes and making sure you're not overspending, on the expense side.
I feel like those are two separate kind of things, which I think a lot of business owners, and I remember you said this particularly, I think when we had first met, you were like, those are two very different things, like tax strategy and like the day to day management of making sure that you're spending healthily and not overspending or canceling some of those subscriptions. What's the typical cadence? I know that generally speaking, right, we're looking at, our P&L like monthly. But is there like a quicker cadence that you recommend for some of that day-to-day management stuff? And then when should we be really preparing for, a tax strategy, and how does that kind of weave into the day-to-day management of the
Um,
business?
I'm actually working with a client right now. We're building out a dashboard for her that has an annual view, a quarterly view, and a monthly view. Most of the time, you're
Mm,
not going to have your books done more than monthly. If you can, that's great. For most of our businesses, things don't fluctuate that much month to month. If you have a product based business, it might. So it just depends on the type of business, of how frequent you want those updates. But at a minimum monthly, you should be looking to see how much are you actually making. I really love to use a modified profit first, which is a great
mm,
book by Mike Michalowicz. I modify it because I like a good textbook definition of things, and then I look at it and I'm like, but that's not really how life works for me. So I modify it to fit my needs or my clients' needs. So using something along those lines. So that if you run profit first, that's looking at your finances every 2 weeks and having a money
mhm,
date to sit down and analyze, are you making what you thought you were? And it leverages bank accounts to help you manage your finances. So that's
mhm.
a really good system. And it's the expense analysis and the financial view is definitely very different from the tax side. But what I will say is no one's going to own your finances like you. And even if you have the best CPA in the world, they're going to be more conservative because it's their butt on the line at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and you get the benefit. So having a basic knowledge of tax strategy that works for your business is super critical too. And the way I like to look at it is, for me, when I help my clients, I am an entrepreneur first and then a finance person. So I look at things with this lens of, how can we help optimize this from an entrepreneur's perspective and help you reach your goals for the business and your family? And then look into it from like I'm not a CPA, but I put on my tax hat and apply it there. So the time to apply tax strategy is yesterday. I mean, really, it's year round. It is not something you do in April or January or whenever you sit down to do your taxes. It's something you should be doing throughout the year and having a strategy of, and if I make this additional income, should I shift to other expenses, or looking at additional tax? I don't want to call them loopholes because they're in the tax code, but you, one of the things I love in tax code is the Augusta rule. Have you heard of this before?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So at the Masters, these people rent out their house to people to come in, and they make like 10 grand for a week just renting out their house. So they created this tax loophole where you can rent out your house. I don't remember the exact number of days, but you can rent it out and not have to claim that income. So your
Mm.
business could pay you to rent your house. Let's say you have a client over and have a meeting. You should charge your business for renting that. And then you get to count the expense, but you don't have to count the income. There's so many little strategies in there that can help you write
That's
off. So
amazing.
if you know you're going to have a big tax year, it's looking to implement some of those things so that you're not going to have to pay such a high bill.
I think like even to like I mean, I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but like business formation and timing of that formation makes a lot of difference as well. Like when we became an S corporation, there was some like investment in getting that set up, and of course some taxes to pay in that regard. But generally speaking, we pay less in taxes because of that formation and because of that setup. Is there a time, whether it's like size of team, revenue picture, any of that stuff, that you really recommend thinking through your formal business formation if you're like a sole proprietor or a single member LLC?
This is one of those, if you have 3 accountants in a room, you'll get 5 answers kind of
Yeah,
questions.
exactly.
So there's not it's so highly specific to the business. I've heard
Mm,
when you have 50 grand in profit, I've heard 100 grand in profit. A lot of times the accountants will base it on the profit number. I would just say, like, ask your accountant as you're going through it. And once you get somewhere in that 50K range, have the conversation about S Corp transition in particular,
mm,
because there's so many benefits to having an S Corp, but you have to be generating a certain amount of income for those benefits to outweigh the cost of that setup. So it's that one's a little complicated, but I would just say, like, it's one of those things, know in your head, hey, I'm at around 50K. Let me talk to my CPA and they can run the numbers for my specific business with their fees and all that and see what makes sense. With an
mhm.
LLC, there's a 2-year look back for startup expenses. So that's something that you could use strategically as well, is opening an LLC so that you can capture that 2-year look back.
That's what we did. I was like individual, then I did the LLC, did the look back, and then we made the decision to transition into an S corporation. And I mean, I think it's afforded us a lot of different things. So, like, yes, tax benefits and some savings there, but also like the structure on the employee side has been, I think, much more advantageous to be an S corporation, particularly treating myself like an employee, being able to qualify for benefits for maternity leave. My second time, we did short-term disability through the business, and that was because I was an employee. And so those types of things, I think we really were able to lean into. So let's shift the conversation to maternity leave. Like, what financial questions do moms need to be asking, or what things do we need to be thinking about when, we're about to have a baby and we want to know whether our business can withstand us being out of it for, a short period of time, or even if, you want to take a longer period of time off. What kind of things do we need to be looking at?
Yeah, I think the first step in, even outside of maternity leave, is having cash reserves.
Mm,
And that can sit ideally in a high yield savings account in personal or business. It doesn't really matter where it sits, but having those reserves so that you can pay what you need to pay for that time that you're out. So
mhm,
that's, I mean, as I'm, 10 weeks away from my due date, that is our first thing, is like, let's make sure we have reserves. And then we're building on top of those reserves for our family to cover what we need for maternity leave. So we have real estate income that's passive. So we don't need to get our full income covered. So we're just building up a reserve account for that additional that we need. That would, in essence, be what I was making.
mhm.
But it's just, for me, it's just having the systems in place that I know I can step away. I personally don't have team. Like, my business is really small and I'm keeping it that way because it's more fun for me. And we have enough going on with all the kids, and I just love it this way. So for me, it's just me. So I'm just going to pause the business and
Mhm.
build up a wait list. And when I come back, be ready to hit the ground running when I'm fully ready. So I've never done a, like, solid maternity leave plan. And
Mhm.
had I met you, 4 years ago, I probably would have made a lot more sense. But with this baby, I've just decided I'm just not going to work. And when I'm ready, I'll come back, and I don't know when that's gonna be. It could be 2 weeks, I doubt it. That's what I did with my other boys, and that's not enough time, but it
Mm-mm.
might be 3 months, it might be 6 months, I don't know. But we're in this financial position where we can do that, so it's really just making sure that you have the runway in place to be able to take that time.
It is so critical. And I always tell moms who come into our programs, I'm like, the more that you can put aside for, like, and really just kind of pad the experience is just going to make it easier. Like, not only on the cash position of the business, but also just on your nervous system and mental state, because you're not constantly feeling like you're running out of cash. And you might make a decision in that case, right, to go back a little bit earlier than maybe your body or maybe your energy level or maybe even your family is ready for. So, what was the difference? Is it cash only, or was there maybe some other things kind of supporting you in making the decision to shut things down and just kind of be in this maternity leave versus with the other two boys taking the 2 weeks? Was it workload? Was it finances? A mixture of both? Because I remember truthfully feeling like I had to go back really early and like I couldn't separate in my first maternity leave, and it was because I had such a high demand on the business, but if I'm being totally honest, it was also because of our cash position, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," I literally felt that clock ticking. I was like, "I can't go back." And so, what's different between the 2 that your first 2 boys and this one?
Honestly, it's inner work is the big difference. With my first, I was still working a corporate job, and I think I had 3 months of leave total, so 6 weeks of partially paid and then unpaid. I don't even remember. Oh gosh, it's been so long. It's been so long, but it hasn't been so long. It's so crazy how time works. But
Yeah.
I went back part-time after the end of my maternity leave with him, but we at the time, I was working my full-time job, and we had a handyman business. We had probably at that point, like, 10 rental properties, and I
Mhm.
think that was it. I think we had just written a book, so we had a podcast and an education business. So I stepped away from the podcast and my husband ran that, but I still stepped in to help out with the rentals and the handyman business literally 2 weeks after he was born. And yeah, it was not the best decision for my nervous system. So, second kid had grand plans of having a solid maternity leave, at least for 3 months. And he wound up with RSV, and then he had like a tongue tie release that we had to deal with, and then some stomach issues. And then my husband left for military duty. So I was solo parenting a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old on my own. And the 3-month-old was literally not sleeping through the night because he was just constantly having these reflux stomach issues. So I don't even know if I worked or not. Like, it's just I was running on
Just a
2 hours
blur.
of sleep. Yeah, it was like 30-minute chunks of 2 hours per night. So, maybe I was working, maybe he was, I don't even know, I'll have to ask because I just literally don't remember. So that was just chaos. And at that point, we had sold the handyman business, so it was mainly just the rental property company. And then I got into contract work doing CFO when he was
Mhm.
about 9 months old. So just doing 1099 work with another company. And that was just to like let me be myself and like get back to who I was and my identity. So with this kid, we have done a ton of work, my husband and I, together and as individuals. And it has taken me a long time. I spent a year trying to build a big fractional CFO company and took out a loan to finance all the startup costs and all the overhead. And long story short, it just did not take off the way I thought it would. And then I
Mm.
realized, why am I trying to build this big business? Like, this is not what I want to do. I would rather just
Mhm.
be the person giving the advice. And that's when I blew it up at the beginning of this year, got rid of all of my team, and just started doing it solo. And we're shifting our real estate now to make it a little bit more passive so that we have more time freedom and can still generate the income that we have been. And I'm just letting, I don't want to call it a hobby because my CFO business is definitely, it's a business, but it's a passion business where it's a lifestyle business where I'm doing it in a way that fulfills me. So I'm just going with my body for the first time in my life instead of being overly controlling and trying to like make things happen. And part of that has entailed selling some houses so that we have the cash to be in the
Mhm.
position. So I don't know if necessarily I left or I started working sooner because of the cash position. I think it was more a control issue and like
Mm.
being unhealthy and wanting to, or feeling like the business needed me. And it
Mm.
probably didn't need that version of me, but I brute forced it. And this time it's like, I'm not going to serve my clients or anyone I'm working with if I show up too early. So I'm going to take the time I need. And that's where I don't know how long that's going to be, but that's, I guess, the beauty of building the lifestyle business.
It really is. And, I think you said a bunch of really interesting things when you shared that story. So thank you for that. I think some of the threads I want to tug on here is first and foremost, letting go of that idea that you are needed. And I think the need to be needed is a very deep and very emotional thing to let go of. And I even love that you said it didn't need that version of you because that's also another really important realization. I think that oftentimes us as business owning moms will overestimate the capacity that we realistically have. And the more accurate and honest we can be with the season that we're in and the capacity that we have, everyone benefits ourselves, our families, our clients, our communities. And I wonder, like, how is that going? Like, are there days when you're like feeling, okay, I feel like I can release this. I feel like I don't need the control. And then are there days where it kind of creeps in where you're like, because you love what you do and you're amazing at it. I mean, I've experienced firsthand some of the advice. Like we talked earlier this week about, again, some of the big things that we're building. And like, it's clear that you have a skill set. It's clear that you're passionate about it. Do those ever end up like friction points where you're like, I want to press pause and I still do really love doing this stuff, but I have to understand where my limits are?
It's really interesting. And I told you when we talked earlier this week that I'm in a place where I don't want to hustle in the business right now. And
Mm.
I'm almost any leads that come in for me right now, I'm just kind of putting them on the wait list already. And I still have 10 weeks, but I just my body is telling me to slow down already. And it could be that I have like pulled this ligament in my left hip from carrying our 30-pound 2-year-old. And I'm
Oh my
just like,
goodness.
it's such a chunk. So, like, I just physically am slowing down, and I never acknowledged my body with the other kids. I just did what I had to
Mm.
do. And this time around, I look at stuff on the floor and I just look at my husband and I'm like, "Yeah, I can't get it. Like, I'm not even gonna try." So, I think there's so many facets in this because right now I'm shifting a lot of my energy to our real estate business because we're shifting our strategy there, and just met with my husband for an hour and a half this morning to work through the strategy and the tactical plan on that. So a lot of my energy is going there, and I'm just slowing down in general already because that's what my body's telling me to do. And I'm wrapping up the clients that I do currently have contracts with, and I don't know, it's just it's I'm so tapped into my body for the first time in my life and letting that lead. And I know when I get through the mental fog that I'm in right now, that's a big part of it too, is I am so foggy and I can feel it. Like I'm getting the kids to school and put on the wrong backpack on each kid. And then my 4-year-old very unpolitely has to correct me. So I just can tell, like, if I'm this foggy on backpacks, how am I going to do running deep financial analysis? So
Mm.
I'm just slowing down and it just feels really good.
It's funny. I have a really similar story. I also have a very similar 4-year-old who is the eagle eye of the family who just will absolutely let us know when we're out of line. It's funny when I travel, Steve had to take the kids to swim lessons. I was in Nashville last week and I was like telling him the code to the family locker room at Lifetime. And he was like, okay, what else? Like, do I need to know? And I was like, honestly, Frank's going to tell you. I was like, just ask him. I was like, let him know like that you need some help and ask him what changing room we always go in and what locker we pick. Like he knows. So I think that's a good thing and a bad thing, especially when you like get deep into it. But I had an identity crisis, when I was postpartum with our first son, and we were like getting ready to go to like not one of the first doctor's appointments, but it was like one of the later ones, like maybe 4 or 6 months. And we were very late to the doctor's appointment. And they were like, hey, sorry, you're just late and we have to reschedule you. Like, that's just how that's going to need to go. And I remember having this like breakdown moment. I was tired. I had, kind of been in the postpartum season for a little while. Like I said, there was a lot of pressure to get back into working. So I was doing that. And I had this like crisis of, well, if I can't even get my kid to an appointment on time, how can I be an operational advisor? Like that was what I was doing. I was fractional COOing. So really similar to what we've been discussing here. And I do want to say that in that moment, I was having a really tough time with it, and I recall looking back with hindsight now and thinking that those 2 brains are different brains. Like, there is definitely something to be said about our business and our specific skill set as an individual being a bit of a sanctuary in a time where we might not feel like fully ourselves. So I think, like, when you share the story about the backpacks, I fully believe that you know what to do with your body. And if your body is signaling you to slow down because you're currently carrying a human life, then listen to that pull. And if you are in a position where, like, you feel like your business is a sanctuary from some of the chaos and like identity stuff that's going on in your personal life, that's also okay too. Like, I feel like there were times where I felt like I almost got a break and I could forget for a second that I had to breastfeed in 3 hours because I was like delivering like automation strategies and it was amazing. So I just want to acknowledge that too for like anybody who's listening to this conversation. I think it can be both. And I think it can be both for the same kid, right? Like even
Mhm.
having a baby and then delivering, like I think it can be both.
The brain fog that comes with pregnancy and postpartum, like I this time around have so much grace for myself of this is just a short season of my life
Mhm.
and not financial advice, but our philosophy has been if we don't have the cash, we will go take out a loan if we have to give me this maternity leave
Mhm.
because this is our plan. This is our last child, according to our plan. We'll see what God has in store for us. But uh my it's more important for me to have this time and to be able to honor my body. And if that means that we get into a spot where we are a little bit in debt, that is okay with me in this season because in 5 years, when I have a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old, my life is going to look dramatically different. I mean, I know what a
Mhm.
4-year-old looks like. I don't know what a 5-year-old looks like. Definitely don't know what a 9-year-old looks like. But I know there's a big difference in just the commitment of my body to my family. So
Yeah.
I have time to recover that financially. So definitely not saying go take out tons and tons of debt for your maternity leave, but just giving yourself grace of like, this is such a short season of our life. And it's more important to me to be intentional with my kids and focused on them and taking care of my body and really soaking up this baby love that's coming for me because I was so scattered with the other two.
Yeah.
And I mean, the identity piece is so key too, though, because I went back to work in a part-time role after both boys because I needed that piece of myself back. But it's
Mm.
getting to that point of when you're ready and not forcing it, and that's where having the finances lined up give you that flexibility.
I couldn't resonate more with what you said about like being ready and feeling like it's not out of desperation that you go back to work or like grasping at finding yourself. I feel like I've been saturated by this season and I'm ready for the next one, or and I'm ready for more. And it feels like something that you can create out of desire instead. Because honestly, a lot of decisions are made out of desperation when it comes to planning maternity leave. And I think the biggest thing that we just want to ask is what type of season do we want this to be? Do we want this to be a season of slow, like it naturally is, right? When mom brings new life into this world, it's a season of slow down. It's a season of just be with baby. And I know that mentally that can be really, really difficult. I know I had a really hard time slowing down because I've always been go, go, go. I've always been like run through the wall where there isn't a door type of person. Like it's just how it's always been. But I do want to talk about, I guess, preparing for the season. How are you going to know when it's time to come back? Do you feel like you have an inkling about, how you might be feeling or some of the signals that you might get when you know that it's time to be back into either fractional work or strategic work?
The late nights of nursing, I love to read, so I will continue reading. I think it's going to be when the shift from like lighthearted books to more business books again is going to be a cue. And I have
Mhm.
a book club that I started to help business owners find financial freedom. So I don't know when I'll restart that, but that'll probably be my sign when I'm ready to restart the book club. I think it's when when the fog lifts is like really the best way I can explain it, because I mean, those first couple months, I mean, the way my husband and I call the first 2 weeks like our Vietnam days, where you literally feel like you're fighting a war in Vietnam in the trenches. Like you're in the rice paddies, just literally trudging through trying to survive. And then
Mm,
for me, it was like every 3 months, I got more and more clarity. But for some
mm,
reason, there was something about the 2 month mark. And then I think around 6 weeks that you start to get a little bit out of the fog, and it just gets progressively better and better. But there was something for us with our boys that literally at the 3 month mark, the 6 month, 9 month, and then the year, it just got like dramatically different.
mm.
So I think it's just when I feel like my brain is online enough and can focus long enough to be able to build out a complex financial analysis.
Mm.
And when I'm getting enough sleep, I think that's going to be a big cue is the sleep.
Yeah, I think we underestimate how tough that is on us for a long period of time. I agree with you. We were very, very lucky when our boys were born, and we had a great system in place for infant sleep. We followed all the rules, and I'm really proud to say that our boys were really good at about 2 months' time. And I believe you. That was about the time frame too where I felt like I had thoughts and I could like process feelings and like energy levels were starting to increase. And it really was like you and your husband described those like early head down, almost warlike times where the adrenaline is so high and you're getting all these cortisol dumps of like, oh my gosh, the baby, oh my gosh, the baby. That I feel like it's almost this season of like you feel like your body can do more than it can. And the places where I find moms, I mean, I've been advising in this arena for about 3 years now, where moms really have a tough time is like if the sleep challenges or the feeding challenges or any of those things extend past that like 2 month-ish mark, because you can kind of make anything work for that short amount of time, you know? I mean, even the sleep, it's not ideal, but getting longer stretches and things like that, if that doesn't feel like it's improving and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I find that a lot of people end up kind of going in the opposite direction, and they're like, is this ever going to end? Is the baby ever going to sleep? And then that's when they start to feel like they're floundering a bit. I personally felt that way a little bit later in the process, particularly with feeding, because that's something that a lot of women do not talk about. I mean, the sleep and all the things are definitely, at the forefront of there's a lot of education out there on baby sleep, but feeding, I think generally, like if you are in a position where you're pursuing breastfeeding as the main source of support for your family, it's just like so taxing on the body depending on how long you do decide to feed. And so that could easily extend a 2 month kind of runway to a 6, 9, 1 year type of runway.
Yeah, that's the beauty of owning my own business is I'm going to start back slow too.
Mhm.
So it'll be a gradual ease in, and I know not
Mhm.
everyone has that flexibility.
Well, I want to first of all thank you because I know that you guys have a lot going on and that you're nearing the end of your pregnancy. I really do appreciate you coming in to share some wisdom, especially on the financial side, because I do experience that to be one of the most stressful pieces of taking a maternity leave, because it really can make or break, the ability that you have to be able to take that longer runway, to ease back in, do some of those things. So I appreciate the wisdom you shared. Can you let moms listening know how they can join your book club when you start it back up?
So it's on Facebook, it's Financial Freedom Book Club. There's one other one out there that has like two people in it, so not that one.
Not that
Uh,
one.
and if you want to shoot me an email, Tiffany@energeticcfo.com, I can get you connected.
That is so amazing because truthfully, I love your position, females owning their finances. Is there anything that you would say to a mom who is currently planning a maternity leave, whether it's her first, second, or seventh, and she's a little bit stressed about maybe her financial position or her cash position? Maybe she's feeling like she needs to return a little bit, sooner than maybe she wants to. Anything that you want to say to that mom?
You said like whether it's your first or seventh. I don't know what this baby's gonna be like. He could be the
Mhm.
mild-mannered 3rd child that we hope he will be, or he could be like our feral second. So, each kid's different, and it's, like, planning, but also having flexibility for things to change. because this kid
Mhm.
might come out and sleep like a champ, or he might be an absolute nightmare. I have no idea. And no matter how many kids you've had, they're all different. So
Yeah.
it's having a plan, but also giving grace for the space in that.
Yeah.
So to answer the question you asked, I think just having a plan, like I said, having a plan, but having flexibility in that plan is so key. And being in a situation where you might not fully be ready to return, but you're in that situation, I think it's just being present in the moments that you do have with your family and
Mhm.
really soaking that up as much as you can. I've realized when I put my 4-year-old to bed at night, he wants me to lay in the bed, and I am the only person that is allowed to lay in the bed with him. Dad, it's like, no, get out. Grandma, babysitter that he loves, does not matter. It is just me. And I will sit there and get on my phone instead of like sitting there and having these kooky, goofy conversations with him. And
Mhm.
literally last night I was looking at him and I was like, this is going to be what I miss is like these precious moments of him. I don't even like, he talks about the weirdest stuff and it's just entertaining. Eh, I've had this pressure of he needs to get to bed. He needs to get to bed so I can go clean and I
Mhm.
can go do all these things and then I can go rest and prop my feet up because they swell. But I'm slowing down in this season as well. So even if you're in a situation where you have to go back to work and it's not really an option, I think it's being slow in the moments where you can. And I'm in the middle of reading Let Them by Mel Robbins, along with
Mm.
like, the majority of the population, I feel like. And just
She's taken
taking
over
the
for sure.
I know, taking the space to just slow down and letting the things that don't matter roll off my back and just being present with my family and soaking that up. That is the, I guess, number one advice I would have.
I fully resonate with that. Particularly the bedtime portion, like when Frank was a little bit younger, I remember this intense pressure, same as you're describing, to do the bedtime routine, to get them down by a certain time and all the things. And then one day I was particularly feeling just curious. I was like, oh, I'm feeling the longer length. Like I don't super care about the timeline. Maybe I had finished up all my chores or something. And I looked at the clock when I got downstairs, like after bedtime was done, and legitimately it was only an extra 10 minutes.
Yeah.
10. And so I think like when I speak with, high performing business owning moms all the time and they think similarly to me, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I have to move on to the next thing. I have to move on to the next thing." They're always thinking about the next. And I think like if we just stop and be present, really it'll only add 10 minutes maybe to our time frame just to spend that extra little moment. The email can wait, the dishes can wait, the team can wait, the client can wait, whatever that looks like for you. And I couldn't agree with that more because I think those moments are some of the times where I feel like they're just seared into my greatest hits of memories with the kids.
Yeah. At the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, it's not going to be that you should have sent an extra 10 emails. I mean, it's having that perspective, which is tough. I mean, in postpartum, you're in
It's
such a
very
haze.
stoic.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
stoic.
I mean, we did the, baby sleep training and all that stuff too.
Mhm.
And I felt so much pressure to follow the rules with my first,
Mhm.
probably to his nervous system's detriment. And
Yeah.
I am going, I mean, we don't co-sleep because I have a nightmare of my kids being in my bed indefinitely. And for the parents that do it, like more power to you. I like my space. Like my husband's not even allowed to touch me when I'm sleeping. So that's just like one of the boundaries I have set and zero judgment. But when we have babies, we sleep with them because that's what they crave. And we do it in a safe as we can. And it's like against the official rules, but like that was a hard thing for me to overcome, but because I am such a rule follower and I want to do it exactly to the
Yeah.
book of putting the baby down the
Same.
right way and all the things. And I just realized like I was burning myself out trying to follow the rules that somebody else set for other babies. It's not my baby, it's not me. So
Yes.
we're going into it with less rigidity with this child and just going more with what feels right. And if it takes an extra month to sleep train, then it takes an extra month.
Honestly, it's beautiful the space that you and your husband are leaning into. It's beautiful to see like the space that you're giving yourself because I think a lot of times, I mean, and listen, we just don't know what we don't know when we're first time moms. I think we follow the rules because there's some part of us that's still struggling with the identity shift or lacks the confidence to feel like we actually know what to do. But I think leaning into over the last 4 years, my intuition as a woman and as a mother and as a partner has been one of the biggest things I feel that has changed our family dynamic is not leading from that place of, well, we need to follow what these experts say or the rules that are laid out in these circumstances. I think systems are great. I'll always love a good system, but I think system for system's sake is not potentially the right way. I think systems to support our natural intuitions, however, is a fantastic way to approach it because I do think that in those difficult times, especially in the newborn season, especially when we're building businesses and trying to figure out what works, I think going with our gut and then acknowledging that we will have bad days where we just don't feel totally on and falling to that level of our system that's in place is going to be perfect, right? That habit that we've built to kind of catch us, when we want to deviate from the plan or we want to phone it in for the day or whatever that looks like for us. So I just so appreciate this perspective because honestly, it's something that I wish I knew earlier. I wish I could like tap into it a little bit earlier in motherhood. I think the point you brought up about your first son's nervous system, it's like the same for my son. He's a total rule follower. And I'm like, no, we have to do it this way and this way. And I totally can see that being part of his personality, in the future. And it still is now. He's learning to go with the flow a little bit more, but jury's out on whether that's going to stick.
He'll figure it out. It'll all work out.
Yeah, I do think so. Tiffany, thank you so much for everything that you've shared, for coming in and prioritizing this conversation. I'll put all of the information that you have on your book club and how to get in touch with you in the show notes. And thank you just so, so much for coming on Growing Pains.